Scary Stories, Top 3 Scariest Hotel Stories You Won't Believe. Before we begin, make sure you're ready. This isn't a story to take lightly. In fact, it might just keep you up at night, questioning every hotel you ever step into. If you're brave enough, stick around till the end, because once you hear these, you might just wish you hadn't. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more spine-chilling tales. Story 1, The Room That No One Leaves. It was supposed to be a peaceful weekend getaway. The Johnson family, tired of the city's chaos, booked a stay at a remote hotel nestled in the mountains. It had great reviews, a cozy atmosphere, and seemed like the perfect place to disconnect from everything. But the moment they arrived, something felt wrong. The air was thick, almost suffocating. The walls of the hotel creaked like the house itself was alive, watching them. The receptionist gave them a peculiar look when they checked in, but they shrugged it off as nothing more than a strange local custom. When they entered room 208, it was already cold, despite the heating system working perfectly. The windows were locked tight, yet a chill crept through the room. The couple tried to ignore it, but then as they started unpacking, they heard faint whispering. A voice, soft yet clear, calling their names. Claire. David. Thinking it was just the wind, they ignored it. But as the night grew darker, so did the atmosphere. The whispers turned to faint knocking at the door. Hesitant, David opened it, but there was no one there. Only the darkness outside, a stark contrast to the glowing hallway light. The knocking continued, getting louder with each passing hour. Thump, thump, thump until it sounded like something, or someone, was trying to get inside. David, growing increasingly uneasy, turned to the bathroom mirror to splash his face with cold water. But when he looked up, his own reflection wasn't quite right. It was smiling. Claire screamed from the other room, but when David rushed to her, the room was empty. No sign of Claire. Just the whispers, now deafening. The walls, now slick with moisture, began to close in as if the room itself was suffocating them. David's last words as the room consumed him were a panicked plea. Please, leave this place. It never lets you go. But it was too late. The room had claimed them. And when the hotel owner went to check on the room days later, there was no sign of the Johnsons. But room 208 was always occupied by something unseen, something that watched, waited. Story 2, The Haunted Elevator. Sarah had just landed in a business trip, eager to get some rest before her early meeting the next morning. She was staying at a luxurious hotel in the city, high above the bustling streets below. The elevator was pristine, polished to a mirror shine. But when she pressed the button to her floor, something felt off. The elevator lurched downward instead of up. The lights flickered, and the soft hum of the motor became unnervingly loud. Sarah reached for the emergency button, but it didn't work. The elevator was descending deeper and deeper, past floors that shouldn't exist. She could feel the cold air as it descended, an unnatural chill. Then the lights went out. Everything went pitch black. The silence that followed was suffocating. Suddenly, the dim red emergency lights flickered on, casting an eerie glow on the metallic walls. Sarah's heart raced, but before she could react, she heard them. Faint footsteps, slow, deliberate. Who's there? Sarah called out, her voice shaking. No answer. And then a whisper. A voice too close to her ear. You shouldn't have taken the elevator. The doors opened with a jolt, revealing nothing but a pitch-black hallway. The floors were covered in a thick, sticky substance, dark like tar. Sarah stepped out, heart racing, only to be greeted by an endless row of doors, all identical. She knocked on one. Nothing. She turned back toward the elevator, but it was gone. It was as if the floor had swallowed it whole. And then, the sound of dragging feet. She ran. She ran so fast she could hardly breathe. But no matter how many doors she passed, the hallway never ended. Every turn was another dead end. Finally, Sarah collapsed, her breaths shallow and rapid, her face pale with terror. The dragging footsteps stopped behind her, and a cold breath hovered over her neck. She spun around. But there was no one. Just the elevator door, slowly opening. And when she dared to look inside, there was her reflection. But not her. The reflection smiled back at her. Story 3, The Guest Who Never Left. For years, rumors had surrounded Hotel Darrow, stories of a room number 13 that no guest ever survived. Despite being booked for the last 2 decades, it was always reserved for someone who would check in but never check out. When Leo, an ambitious young writer, arrived, he was told to avoid that room. Of course, he didn't listen. His curiosity got the better of him, and he requested the room for himself. It's just a silly superstition, he told himself. When he entered the room, the temperature was frigid, the air thick with something foul. The bed was made, the sheets crisp and untouched. It seemed normal, but something was undeniably wrong. That night, Leo was kept awake by a soft whisper, whimpering. He tried to ignore it, assuming it was just a figment of his imagination. But then the sound came again. This time it was louder, closer. He got up to investigate, walking slowly toward the source. The mirror on the wall fogged up in front of him, despite the room being ice cold. The message on the mirror was chilling. "You shouldn't have stayed. You'll never leave." Suddenly, a shadow darted past him, faster than the human eye could track. Leo turned, his heart pounding in his chest. The room was empty, or so it seemed. The whispers grew louder, more frantic. They came from the walls, from under the floorboards, from the very air around him. And then a face appeared in the mirror. It wasn't Leo's. It was the face of a man, gaunt and pale, his eyes hollow and dark. His lips moved, but no sound escaped. "Welcome to your eternal rest." Leo turned and saw the door swing shut behind him. When he tried to open it, it wouldn't budge. The walls began to close in, the air growing thinner, as if the room was shrinking, suffocating him. And then the lights went out. The next morning, the hotel staff found room 13 exactly as it had been, neat, tidy. But Leo was gone. There was no trace of him. No sign he'd ever been there. Yet, if you listen closely enough, you can still hear him. The whispers from room 13 calling you, drawing you in. Because once you stay there, the hotel never lets you go. If you enjoyed these terrifying tales, then make sure you subscribe. Because once you hear these stories, it's too late. You're already a part of them. And the darkness is always watching.